People judge what they see, but they have no idea what life is hiding behind a person's pain. Today's story is about a cleaner with torn shoes, a man everyone laughed at, especially his own manager. But when work ended, something happened at the front gate, something that made the entire staff freeze. Because the man who came to pick him up was someone the manager never expected. A truth so shocking it shattered everyone's assumptions. And after that day, not a single person ever dared judge him again. Before we begin, tell me in the comments from which country are you watching this story? I love seeing people join in from all around the world. And if you enjoy emotional, lesson-filled stories like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. It really supports us and helps these stories reach more beautiful hearts like yours.
The morning sun poured through the giant glass windows of Elliton Corporate Tower, turning the marble floors into shining mirrors. Employees rushed in, their polished shoes tapping fast, their perfumes mixing with the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Laughter, greetings, elevator chimes. The office was buzzing with confidence, ambition, and pride. But in the middle of that busy morning rush, walked a man who seemed completely out of place. His name was Elijah Carter. A quiet, thin black cleaner in his late 50s. His steps were slow, uneven. His right foot dragged slightly because of an old injury. His uniform was neatly washed but faded from years of use. And on his feet, a pair of old, cracked brown shoes so worn out that the stitching had come undone at the front. One small flap of leather lifted with every step he took. Most people pretended not to notice him. Others didn't bother hiding their disgust. A group of young employees whispered loudly as he passed. "Man, look at that! I think my grandfather's shoes look newer than this. Why doesn't he buy a new pair? Isn't it embarrassing?" The hurt flickered in Elijah's eyes, but he kept walking, slow, steady, silent. He always stayed silent. As he reached the main hallway, he took out his cleaning cart, adjusted his gloves, and began wiping the glass partition. His movements were slow but precise, almost gentle. He cleaned like it meant something, like his work had value even if no one else saw it. A few minutes later, the worst part of his day arrived. The operations manager, Mr. Daniel Collins. A tall, sharp-faced white man in his early 40s, known for his cold personality and love for power. His suit was perfect, his hair gelled, his shoes shining like obsidian. Whenever he walked, people straightened up, not out of respect, but fear. He spotted Elijah from across the hall, and his lips curled into a mocking smirk. Here comes the humiliation. "Good morning, sunshine." Or should I say, good morning to the man whose shoes should be declared a museum fossil? The office fell silent. Then laughter exploded. People chuckled. Some covered their mouths. Others looked directly at Elijah to see how he would respond. But Elijah just lowered his gaze and continued wiping the glass window. His hands trembled slightly, but he said nothing. He never talked back. Ever. Collins walked closer and tapped Elijah's shoe with the end of his expensive pen. "You know, I think your shoes have seen more presidents than this country. Maybe it's time to retire them. Or better, retire yourself." More laughter. More humiliation. Elijah kept his head down. The only sound was the cloth moving against the glass. Across the hall, someone was watching carefully. Ava Thompson, the new intern, only 22. Kind-hearted, observant, and very unlike the others. She watched the scene unfold with a frown. She didn't laugh. She didn't smile. Instead, she felt something tug inside her. Pity? Anger? She didn't know. But she noticed something others didn't. While everyone saw an old cleaner with torn shoes, Ava saw the gentleness in his movements, the respect he had for his work, and a certain heaviness in his eyes. A heaviness that didn't belong to someone lazy or useless. A heaviness that belonged to someone who had suffered and kept going. When the laughter died down, Collins walked away like he had accomplished something meaningful. Elijah quietly continued working. Time passed. Around noon, while employees chatted in the cafeteria, Elijah sat alone outside, under the small shade near the loading area. He didn't buy food. He always brought something wrapped in foil. A simple sandwich. Ava walked by and noticed he wasn't eating. Instead, he was holding his phone, staring at a message notification. He quickly hid the phone when he noticed her presence, but Ava had already caught a glimpse of the message notification. "Dad, I hope you're okay. I'll call you tonight. Amara." Love. There was a softness in the way he looked at the name. A softness only a parent could have. After taking a deep breath, he pulled off one of his shoes and examined it. The sole was splitting apart, the leather peeling. He pressed it gently with his thumb, sighed, and whispered something under his breath. Ava didn't hear it clearly, but it sounded like, "Just a few more days. I promised her." That line stayed in her mind. Why few more days? What promise? Why did this old man endure so much humiliation silently? There was a story here, an unseen story no one cared to learn. But Ava did. Before she left, she turned back to look at him. Elijah sat alone on the concrete bench, shoe in hand, staring at it as if it carried the weight of his entire life. In that moment, he didn't look like a cleaner. He looked like a man carrying pain, sacrifice, and stories no one ever bothered to ask about. And that was how the first day of truth began. Quietly, painfully, and unnoticed by the world around him.
The next morning, Ava entered the office earlier than usual. Something about Elijah lingered in her thoughts, the quiet sadness in his eyes, the message from someone named Amara, and the way he held his broken shoe like it carried a lifetime of memories. While the building was still waking up, she walked toward the maintenance area. She found Elijah quietly restocking his cleaning cart, folding wipes, checking bottles, arranging everything with a precision that surprised her. It was as if cleaning wasn't just his job. It was a responsibility he honored. "Good morning, Mr. Elijah," she said softly. Elijah looked up, startled for a moment. Most employees never greeted him, let alone by his name. "Oh, good morning," he replied gently, his voice carrying warmth despite its tiredness. Ava stood beside him, pretending to look at the shelves, but really observing him. His limp seemed worse today. His hands, though steady, had small scars. His eyes, kind but exhausted, held both pride and pain. "Do you work every day?" she asked. "Yes," he smiled faintly, "every single day." "Don't you ever rest?" Elijah paused for a moment. "Rest is a luxury, young lady, and right now I cannot afford luxuries." Ava felt something shift in the air, an invisible weight pressing on him. When lunchtime arrived, she decided to sit near him outside. Elijah was again with his simple foil-wrapped sandwich, but today, instead of eating,
He was reading something. Ava's eyes widened. It wasn't a newspaper. It wasn't a magazine. It was a thick medical textbook filled with diagrams of human hearts, arteries, and medical procedures. "Are you studying this?" she asked, sitting down beside him. Elijah quickly closed the book, embarrassed. "Oh, it's nothing important." "Nothing important? That's a cardiology book." He smiled, a small, shy smile that held both pride and sorrow. "My daughter, she wants to be a doctor, a heart doctor." He tapped the cover gently. "I try to understand what she studies, so when she explains things, I don't look foolish." Ava's heart softened instantly. "You're learning all this just to understand her world?" "Yes," he nodded. "She teaches me every evening on call. I take notes so I don't forget." He opened a page filled with handwritten notes in careful penmanship, notations, definitions, sketches. This wasn't a hobby. This was dedication, love, sacrifice. Ava couldn't stop herself. "What about you? What did you do before working here?" Elijah stared ahead for a long moment, as if deciding whether to let someone into the locked room of his past. Finally, he spoke. "I was once a high school math teacher. Not rich, not famous, but happy. I had my wife Leela and my little girl Amara. Life was simple. When Leela got sick, everything changed. I spent everything. Every savings, every loan, hospitals, medicines, treatments. I tried everything to save her." He swallowed hard. "I lost her. And I lost more than half my strength with her." Ava lowered her gaze, feeling the depth of his wound. "But I still had Amara," he continued. "She wanted to study medicine. She wanted to save people the way no one could save her mother. I promised her I would support her dream, no matter what it cost." "So you took this job?" she asked gently. "This was the only job I could get quickly, and the injury from the accident made things worse." "What accident?" Ava asked. Elijah looked down at his leg. "The accident that caused my limp. A car hit me years ago. It changed my life, but not my promise." He smiled again, broken, yet beautiful. "She's in her final stage of medical training now. Tomorrow she receives her official results." A soft glow lit his eyes. "She will know whether she becomes a doctor." "And your shoes?" Ava asked quietly. Elijah chuckled. "These old things?"
The next day began with unusual tension inside Elliston Corporate Tower. The halls buzzed about one thing. The CEO himself was visiting for a surprise inspection. Whenever that happened, everyone became extra alert, extra obedient, and Mr. Collins became twice as cruel. Elijah arrived early, as always. He began his shift by polishing the long hallway floors, moving slowly, carefully, making sure the surface shined like clear water. His limp was heavier today, but he never complained. He never did. Ava watched him from a distance, wishing she could shield him from what she knew was coming. At exactly 9:12 a.m., Collins stormed out of the elevator, papers in one hand, anger in the other. He scanned the hallway like a hunter searching for prey. And he found Elijah.
"There you are," Collins snapped, walking toward him. "Move faster. The CEO will be here any minute, and this floor needs to look like heaven kissed it." Elijah nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir." But Collins wasn't satisfied. Maybe he never was. He grabbed a hot cup of coffee from the assistant walking by, took a sip, then purposefully let it fall to the ground. The brown liquid splashed across the marble tiles, spreading in messy circles. A hush fell. Employees watched, shocked, but not enough to speak. Collins turned to Elijah slowly. "Well," he smirked, "clean it, and try not to ruin those historical shoes of yours." Laughter scattered again through the hall. Elijah lowered himself to the floor, knees cracking, hands shaking slightly. He pulled out his cloth and began wiping the coffee quietly. Ava clenched her fists. How could people laugh at a man bending over with pain just to feed his child? As Elijah wiped, Collins intentionally stepped closer, his polished shoes inches from Elijah's face. "You know," Collins said loudly, making sure everyone heard, "if you looked more presentable, maybe I'd consider keeping you after the layoffs." Layoffs. The word shot through the hallway like a shockwave. People exchanged anxious glances. No one had expected that. Collins grinned. "Oh, did you all think your jobs were safe? The CEO wants efficiency. That means some of you are gone." He smirked down at Elijah again. "And some," he tapped Elijah's shoe with his own, "should have been gone years ago." Elijah didn't respond, not because he was weak, because he refused to give anger a home in his heart. Later, during lunch break, Ava found Elijah helping the elderly security guard carry a heavy box. After the guard walked away, Elijah opened his lunch foil, but instead of eating, he handed it to a delivery driver who looked hungry. "You didn't eat yesterday either," Ava said, stepping toward him. Elijah smiled softly. "He needed it more than I did." Ava shook her head. "Why don't you stand up for yourself? You don't deserve this." Elijah leaned against the wall, eyes tired but calm. He said, "Some people fight battles you cannot see. Silence is not weakness. Sometimes it is sacrifice." Ava felt her eyes burn. This man was made of something rare. Before she could speak again, Elijah's phone buzzed. He checked the message and froze. Ava watched him as his expression lit up. Hope, fear, joy, everything mixed together. The message read, "Dad, I'm coming today. I have news." Elijah stared at those words, his hands trembling. Ava stepped closer. "Good news?" I think so. My daughter, she might—" He stopped, voice shaking. "She might finally become what her mother dreamed of." He didn't say more. He didn't need to. But Ava could feel the energy shifting around him. Something big was coming. Something life-changing. Something that would soon expose every rumor, every insult, every assumption.
The office parking lot buzzed with its usual end-of-day chaos. Engines starting, people chatting, heels clicking, last-minute phone calls being made. But Elijah wasn't paying attention to any of it. He stood near the front gate, holding his old backpack tightly against his chest. His breath trembled. His eyes kept shifting toward the main entrance, scanning every vehicle that passed. Employees walked past him with bored faces, some glancing at his torn shoes, some whispering again. But not Ava. She stayed behind, pretending to organize her files near the exit, just to watch over him. She could feel it in her chest. Something big was coming. Then suddenly, a sleek black car turned into the driveway. Not just any car, a luxury sedan. Tinted windows, chrome rims, the kind of car only high-ranking professionals or VIP families used.
Conversations around the parking lot paused. People turned instinctively. The car rolled to a stop right in front of Elijah. A hush fell. Elijah held her breath. From the driver's side stepped out a tall young woman in her mid-20s, wearing a long white coat over formal clothes. A stethoscope hung around her neck. Her ID badge gleamed under the setting sun. Dr. Amara Carter, cardiology resident. She looked like success itself, confident, elegant, standing with the grace of someone who had fought storms and survived. The same name Ava had seen on Elijah's phone. The same girl he talked about with trembling pride. Employees froze, confused. Then, Elijah wasn't paying attention to any of it. He stood near the front gate, holding his old backpack tightly against his chest. His breath trembled. His eyes kept shifting toward the main entrance, scanning every vehicle that passed. Employees walked past him with bored faces, some glancing at his torn shoes, some whispering again. But not Ava. She stayed behind, pretending to organize her files near the exit, just to watch over him. She could feel it in her chest. Something big was coming. Then suddenly, a sleek black car turned into the driveway. Not just any car, a luxury sedan, tinted windows, chrome rims. The kind of car only high-ranking professionals or VIP families used. Conversations around the parking lot paused. People turned instinctively. The car rolled to a stop right in front of Elijah. A hush fell. Elijah held her breath. From the driver's side stepped out a tall young woman in her mid-20s, wearing a long white coat over formal clothes. Her ID badge gleamed under the setting sun. Dr. Amara Carter, cardiology resident. She looked like success itself, confident, elegant, standing with the grace of someone who had fought storms and survived. The same name Ava had seen on Elijah's phone. The same girl he talked about with trembling pride. Employees froze, confused. Then, Dr. Amara Carter, cardiology resident. She looked like success itself, confident, elegant, standing with the grace of someone who had fought storms and survived. The same name Ava had seen on Elijah's phone. The same girl he talked about with trembling pride. Employees froze, confused. Then, Dr. Amara Carter, cardiology resident. She looked like success itself, confident, elegant, standing with the grace of someone who had fought storms and survived. The same name Ava had seen on Elijah's phone. The same girl he talked about with trembling pride. Employees froze, confused. Then, Dr. Amara Carter, cardiology resident. She looked like success itself, confident, elegant, standing with the grace of someone who had fought storms and survived. The same name Ava had seen on Elijah's phone. The same girl he talked about with trembling pride. Employees froze, confused. Then, "Dad!" she shouted, her voice breaking into pure joy. Elijah's tired face lit up, brighter than the sun, brighter than anything Ava had ever seen on him. "My baby," he whispered. He didn't walk toward her. She ran toward him. She threw her arms around him, not caring about his old uniform, his worn shoes, or the cleaning cart beside him. She hugged him tight, burying her face into his shoulder like she had found home after years. Tears streamed down Elijah's cheeks instantly. It wasn't just a reunion. It was the fulfillment of every sacrifice he had ever made. People stared, stunned, but the real shock was about to begin. Mr. Collins stepped out of the building, annoyed at the commotion. "What is going on here?" he barked. But when he saw the luxury car, the doctor, the hug, he froze. Amara turned around, eyes sharp. "You must be Mr. Collins," she said coldly. Yes, I am. I'm the person who's been funding this building's annual health program, and I'm also the daughter of the man you've been humiliating for months. A direct hit. Collins's face drained of color. She stepped closer, her voice firm and cutting. You mocked his shoes. You mocked his job. You mocked his pain. But you had no idea the strength of the man you were stepping on. Silence. Not even the wind dared to move. Elijah placed a gentle hand on his daughter's arm. "Imara, it's all right," he whispered. "No, Dad," she said, eyes filled with fire. "It's not all right." Every employee stood still, ashamed, speechless, humbled. Because in that moment, everyone finally understood. The man with old shoes was worth more than all their polished pride combined.
A stillness settled over the parking lot, a silence so heavy that even the sound of distant traffic seemed to fade. Employees who had once laughed at Elijah's shoes now stood frozen, unable to lift their eyes. Elijah gently squeezed his daughter's hand. "Imara, let's not create trouble," he whispered, always choosing peace even when his heart carried storms. But Imara wasn't done. She took a deep breath, turned toward the crowd, and spoke with a voice that carried both pride and fire. "My father worked 3 jobs after my mother died. He barely slept. He barely ate. He limped through pain, through cold nights, through humiliation, just to keep a promise to me." Tears filled Elijah's eyes again. He lowered his head, ashamed of nothing anymore, only overwhelmed by the love shining in his daughter's voice. Imara continued, "You saw a cleaner. You saw old shoes. You saw weakness. But what you never saw was the man who sold his own belongings so I could buy my medical books. The man who walked miles when his leg injury made it unbearable because he didn't want to spend money on a bus fare. The man who cleaned your messes while building a future for me." Her voice broke. "And today, I became a doctor because of him, because of his sacrifices, his strength, his goodness." Every single person lowered their head, even the ones who had laughed the loudest. Collins tried to speak, but words caught in his throat. Imara turned to him, eyes sharp. "You judged him without knowing his story. You mocked him publicly. You abused your power. And today, I want you to understand something." She stepped forward. "You didn't break him. You revealed who you truly are and who he truly is." Collins had no response, no insult, no ego left to hide behind. He simply stood there, small, exposed, defeated. Elijah touched his daughter's shoulder again. "Imara, let's go home." She smiled softly and nodded. Before leaving, she turned once more toward the staff and said, "If you see someone struggling, don't laugh. Don't assume. Don't judge." Her gaze softened. "You never know what battles they're fighting or what angels they're raising." She helped her father into the passenger seat, placing his old backpack carefully beside him. The door closed gently, like the ending of a long, painful chapter. As the car rolled away, the employees stood still, watching the man they once mocked drive off with dignity, pride, and love, in a car they never imagined would stop for him. Ava whispered softly into the quiet air, People judge what they see, but they never know the story behind someone's pain. And she promised herself she would never stay silent again. If this story touched your heart even a little, let me ask you something. Have you ever been judged without people knowing your truth? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you believe the world needs more kindness, more understanding, and more stories like this, please consider subscribing. It takes just a second for you, but it helps our channel reach thousands of hearts around the world. Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching.